Welcome back, Nutritional Edge friends. We are rock and rolling on today's Thursday as myself, Dr. Chris, and Nathan Slicker right over there are coming to y'all live on Facebook and YouTube. And today we have on deck protocols, tactics, strategies towards eliminating your migraines with an emphasis on the nutritional side of the edge. Not necessarily on the neurologic side of the edge, but on the nutritional side of the edge. Nathan says he's got some foods dialed up, some protocols to check in and follow. And so I'm assuming he must have researched and read some articles and some research papers to be prepped for this. So I'm pretty intrigued with what he has to say, because whatever he has to say is going to help me out as well. Take care of a lot of people that deal with migraines, not only migraines, but a lot of chronic health issues too. So how's the week going, Nathan?
You know it. Yeah, been going well. And man, it's been really hot outside though. It's forced me to stay inside and try to get out there. Like this morning was really cool. But then just gets so darn hot. But
yep. Yeah. It was a quick flip of the switch. We were hanging out in the 80s, not a whole lot of humidity, and now we're like 100 and humid. Not ideal. Not how you draw it up.
And on that note, someone was asking me a question you might know more of, and I was not sure. They were asking if like high heat can worsen joint pain, because I usually think of like pressure changes for migraines or cold temperatures for joint pain. You know anything about high heat causing joint pain? I hadn't really heard that, but I was like, maybe. I don't know.
Are they related with fluid retention, says a rheumatologist? Let's see. So could be fluid retention, could be pressure. Pressure is the one that I'm pretty aware of.
Right.
But it looks like heat temperature might result in more fluid retention, which if there's joint stiffness or decreased space, then that makes sense. Yeah. And then this also says decreased or dehydration in activity, like dehydration because people are sweating more and losing more water. That can be a trigger initiator for inflammation. And then also, this is interesting, heat causes the muscle and tendons around a joint to tighten. Interesting. I don't know how much I buy that.
Well, I know that some people use heat and cold, maybe alternating to relieve things like joint pain or just pain. I don't know. But yeah, we definitely need to be drinking plenty of water this time of year. Talking about migraine and headache prevention, I think you start there. I think you start with getting plenty of water and getting plenty of sleep. And all the other things we'll talk about today are secondary to that in my mind.
Why are they secondary? Why are those primary?
Well, I think, for instance, I'll start with one of the first things that you will want to keep an eye on with people with migraines is caffeine. And although caffeine is sometimes used to prevent or treat headaches, it very likely can trigger things like migraine in certain individuals. So before someone was thinking about weaning off caffeine, and they're getting like 3 hours of sleep, or they're only drinking like a glass of water, I would say, hey, why don't you start with the water, start with the sleep, and address that. Don't even worry about getting into some of those more minor things like reducing caffeine. Had you heard about caffeine and its potential negative side effects on migraines?
Oh yeah, for sure. Caffeine's a vasoconstrictor.
Right.
So migraines, a big part of migraines are blood flow. And a lot of times when we're having a headache or a migraine type scenario, that's because our brain cells are receiving decreased amount of blood flow, which leads to decreased amount of oxygen. Yeah. And when that occurs, we get a headache. That's the fire alarm that's going off in our body. So if we are consuming caffeine, an effort to maybe get rid of a headache, we state that, oh, that might get rid of a headache. It might be just due to endorphins being released from the stress hormones.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it's going to further dehydrate and further decrease water oxygen supply, therefore increase likelihood of headaches, migraines, um, those type of presentations.
Yeah.
So no, caffeine is it's actually not the answer for headaches. As people think, some people will get a headache if they don't have caffeine.
Right.
I've never experienced that. It's been the opposite. I really have never really gotten headaches either.
Yeah. I think that misconception that people have, I would probably say if I were to poll people, I would expect like nine out of 10 people to think that caffeine would relieve headaches or migraines. I think the misconception is that yes, caffeine withdrawal can cause a headache, but that's just because we have like a small addiction to it and our body is adjusting. If you wean yourself off of caffeine, caffeine is not going to usually be, like you said, it's not really treating what's causing the headache. And it can be a huge trigger for people. And so it can be a bummer when that's something that we're talking about an approach to do, because coffee is great. So decaf coffee or tea can be an option for people, but there are other components in coffee and tea, even decaffeinated, such as tannins. So even decaf coffee and tea decaffeinating doesn't get rid of the tannins. And tannins are a substance that can also cause migraines and headaches. It might be less frequent than caffeine, but that's another thing. So sometimes it's best to go off of all coffee and tea for a period of time if you're trying to determine if that's causing the problems.
Very nice. Very nice. So avoiding caffeine, there's one.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think that's a big one that people are not aware of.
Yep.
What else you got?
Well, alcohol can be a trigger for several different reasons. One can be dehydrating, and just that effect in and of itself can be causing headaches. Um, Alcohol has natural occurring sulfites, and most of the time, especially in the US, added sulfites for processing and shelf life. And a lot of people are susceptible or sensitive to sulfites. Alcohol also has tannins, and it's fermented, so it has higher levels of tyramine, which is a amino acid that can definitely be a trigger. So there's a lot of reasons why alcohol can be a problem. So one of the best first steps for people to determine if something they're ingesting is worsening their migraine is to go caffeine and alcohol free for a few weeks and then see if that makes a significant impact.
Is there a reason for that amount of time? Is that the typical time that it'll take to notice that difference?
You know, the amount of time you need to give up things depends on your the purpose behind it. So if someone is worried that they might have a food sensitivity to something, like you can have a food sensitivity to caffeine or tyramine, in that case, you would need at least 4 weeks to notice, to give it the full kind of effect. Because if you only do it for a few days, it may not give the immune system time to change and kind of calm down in a sense. If it's something like lactose intolerance, someone would only need to give up lactose for a couple days and they should be fine. You know, they should be back. If that's the only problem, it's because that's just about digestion, maldigestion, not an immune system. So that's why I think that 2 to 4 weeks for something like alcohol or caffeine is a good minimum to see if it's causing it. And I think for any type of elimination diet, it's important to be really, really consistent, because if you only do it 50%, like you're like, well, I was going to go caffeine free, but I still did this and that 3 days out of the 4 weeks. Well, then you kind of didn't give it its full chance of success, if that makes sense. It's one thing that you do have to be really strict on during that period of time, or else it kind of loses the purpose.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So I had a patient who's she is navigating brain fog a little bit in the morning.
Yeah.
Found out that she drinks coffee first thing
Yeah.
and then has water. So I told her, well, let's just switch that order. Let's have water first and then coffee. Wait about 90 minutes. That's what I'm hearing. It's about 90-minute wait for your first cup of caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's allowing for is coffee acts on your adenosine system. And adenosine is not active in the first 90 minutes of being awake. And by acting on your adenosine system, it also is going to be stimulating your stress hormones. And so, what actually makes our cells operate is salt. So that's where having salt water first, electrolytes in your water, is going to be leading to that increased energy state that you're looking for, without the kind of valleys, drops that you would receive from coffee caffeine. So I wonder how many days it might take her to notice that type of change with it.
That's a good question. It would depend on the person for sure. I don't know the exact time frame, but hopefully start noticing effects within a week or two. That's really interesting. Yeah, the adenosine receptors that caffeine is blocking. I've heard that too, that delaying that will help prevent some of the crashes with caffeine. And
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah. So it's almost like you're trying to put a key in the keyhole. And what coffee does, it prevents the key from going to the keyhole.
Yeah.
So, but it's almost like a magnet,
Yeah.
where it has like that attraction. And so once the blockade frees up, then it's like it has so much like built up magnetic charge, it just goes.
Yeah.
And what this is, the adenosine makes you sleepy, makes you tired. So when we run out of caffeine, we have this built pent up reserve of magnetic juice, and it binds super hard together. The key goes in the keyhole super aggressively and just locks in tight.
Yeah.
That's why we get so tired by like noon.
Yeah.
It's because we've had caffeine. But if you wait longer, that adenosine is going to clear out. And this metabolic byproducts clear out. It's going to flush away from the water that you drink. Therefore, it's not going to be there. Therefore, you're not going to get tired.
Yeah. What's funny about the kind of associations that your brain makes is that when I went caffeine free and still am, it took a minute for me I feel like my brain to recognize that the decaf coffee I'm drinking is not going to give me energy. I swear there was this placebo effect of drinking some decaf coffee, and I'm like, I have energy. And then like pretty soon maybe a few days later, my brain's like, that's not giving me any fake energy from the caffeine.
And it's like, what even is energy? Is it a high heart rate? Is it a pulse you're feeling on the side of your temple?
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That's all about all we know.
I mean, you definitely know grogginess. You for sure know grogginess. Like, what is
energy?
Energy itself.
ATP?
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's like with coffee, drinking caffeine, it's like, oh, I'm gonna use this to get me juiced up, get me fired up.
Yeah, that's why I like to call it fake energy.
Yeah, it is. It's purely from hormones or dopamine and just those neurochemicals creating that livelihood. It's like it's almost it's putting you in the mood to want to do something, and you think that's the energy, but really I think caffeine is just a huge kick of dopamine that gets you over that threshold.
So exercise consistently gives us so much energy. So I'm thinking, is that due to the fact that it's increasing blood flow and it's strengthening our organs, maybe allowing them to function better? What is it about exercise that like gives us this energy boost that's so noticeable?
Oh, there's blood flow with it. There's nervous system neurochemicals associated with it. You get endorphins being released when you're doing hard work, especially if you do something that you don't think you can do and exceed it. There's also hormones that are being released that are flowing through your bloodstream that in tune give you energy from it. That's why I like doing my exercise in the morning versus at night, because at night you get that kick, but then you're trying to go right to sleep. It's kind of
Yeah.
counterproductive. I'm a big optimizer type person, and so I'm always looking at like how can I have one thing leverage another thing.
Yeah.
So in the morning we want to have like really good hormone operation and the energy hormone side of things, and doing the things that are going to stimulate that,
Yeah.
rather than doing that at the end of the day, because we're trying to unwind, tone it
Yeah.
down, and get ready for sleep. So exercise is a good component from circulation, which is bringing in nutrients, letting out waste products, nerve supply, stimulating firing of nerves, neurochemicals, neurotransmitters, and then also hormones itself, the energy hormones, stress hormones, positive stress hormones, and allowing those to operate the way that they're supposed to and designed to.
Mm.
Um, and that plays a role in migraines too. But more than likely, these people are fairly sedentary, don't do a whole
Yeah.
lot,
Right.
and they have migraines. Now it's like, which ones is implicating the other? Are they having migraines, therefore they don't work out? Or are they not exercising, therefore they don't have migraines? I'd be
Mm.
willing to bet if they start exercising, they probably have less migraines. It's one of my
Yeah.
pieces. Like one of my very first patients, she started off not being able to exercise at all, and if she did, she get put in the hospital.
Wow.
And I just started telling her, it's like, hey, let's start mixing in like 10-minute walk a day. Start mixing that stuff in. And then all of a sudden she came one day, she's like, uh I walked 8 miles.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy smokes. Like, how'd she get that resiliency,
Yeah.
stamina without it causing her a headache?
Mm.
And so a big piece of that was she built up from the ground up and just stuck with it consistent every day, and then basically experienced that the addition of movement helped mitigate migraines.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
the way that exercise, blood flow plays a role. Nutrition plays a big role.
Yeah.
Inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I would enjoy learning more about, is what is inflammation's role in being one of the causes of migraines.
Mm. Yeah. That's a really interesting phenomenon. There's of course the MRT, the mediator release test, which has been so helpful for people with migraines, and it's been very helpful for a lot of different conditions, but the main ones that it's been studied for are migraines, fibromyalgia, and then IBS. Um, yeah, it's clearly a significant contributor to symptoms, and it's really difficult to figure out food triggers on your own. What makes that so difficult is that they're not immediate. So if you were to eat something like I don't know, peanuts, and that, let's say peanuts were something that gave someone a food sensitivity, and if they didn't experience a migraine till the next day, then if they're keeping a very consistent food journal, they might blame it on something completely different. And so even meticulous food journaling can make it very difficult to determine if food is or isn't having an impact on migraines. But mediator release test, which I have been doing for clients since last summer, has been really, really great. And for people that have multiple symptoms of inflammation, just like you're looking at, we're looking at the same things. We're looking at multiple systems with symptoms. So if someone has gut issues, headaches, brain fog, skin issues, those are all signs that you have that chronic low-grade inflammation. And trying to help people from two different ways, two very different types of approaches for very similar conditions. And so it's what makes us such a great complement to each other. And so, yeah, really helpful. But yeah, why migraines and the inflammation it's causing are linked is a little bit further than I'm brushed up on. But what I do know is helping people construct a nutrient-dense elimination diet that's very structured with a reintroduction phase is really the gold standard for a migraine diet, if that makes sense, because everybody's different and needs to figure out on their own journey what might be causing symptoms. And you can help someone along with that journey through that testing. It gives you a big leg up because you can know what to start with and where to go.
Very nice. So you've been seeing a lot of good stuff with MRT tests and
Yeah.
not only migraines, but also chronic health issues, but primarily
Yeah.
migraines.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I heard you correctly, you said that the inflammation side of things, not necessarily, um, we're not able to like pinpoint yet what cause of or how inflammation and migraines are connected.
I'm sure that there's people with a lot who love science even more than I do that could explain that a lot better. But because I'm more aware of the how to structure elimination diets, the current research that food sensitivities can cause migraines. But that's a really interesting question: as what are the exact processes that are why is the inflammation caused by food sensitivity causing migraines in some people? Why is it causing skin issues in some people? Why is it causing bowel issues? A lot of those inflammatory reactions seem to be pretty similar. So there might be a lot of similarities. Why it's affecting people in different ways, that's a tough question. There might be more answers than I have to that. But it being so random can be frustrating. So the best way to kind of determine if someone is a likely candidate for having a food sensitivity is to do a comprehensive global symptom survey. And that's been really helpful for people to take. If someone wants to take that and see if they score high, then that's really helpful in determining whether it's an investment they want to do. Because mediated release test isn't covered by insurance. So you have to think, is that worth it? I've seen it to be worth it in a lot of different people, especially if they have signs of inflammation, especially if people have multiple conditions that could be helped. So if they have IBS and migraines and fibromyalgia, then it's like a no-brainer. Absolutely should see and evaluate. Now, there are other things that can cause migraines and trigger migraines that may not be a food sensitivity per se, but that in excess can still trigger symptoms. So I can list a couple more of those. I mentioned that alcohol has tyramine because it's been fermented, but other fermented foods like anything pickled, like sauerkraut or anything like that, is going to have a lot more tyramine. And kombucha has been fermented, so that has tyramine, and tyramine can be a trigger for people. So people with migraines might need to think back to, okay, what do I think might be causing my migraines? Am I noticing that I have symptoms when I eat these types of foods? Also, anything that's been aged, so like hard cheeses are really high in tyramine. And then another big trigger is smoked meats because of the nitrates that they have, specifically the added nitrates, because vegetables have a lot of nitrates, but they're not a common trigger. The smoked meats have added nitrates and MSG sometimes, and that's really common cause too.
What's MSG?
Monosodium glutamate.
What does that do? Why is that?
What does that do? It's used as a substitute for salt, and anything with too much glutamine can, I believe, trigger some of those chemicals like acetylcholine. Like it can basically be a almost like a stimulant effect. And so MSG, a lot of times, any type of like glutamic acid might be limited for people that have like ADHD or hyperactivity type symptoms. But yeah, MSG can cause migraines.
Yeah, stuff that's found in like pretzels or chips.
A lot of Asian food, like ramen was, or like Asian cooking used to have. So some do, some don't. Some have replaced MSG because it's been under fire a lot. But Yeah, there's still a lot in Asian cooking.
No, it's not good at all. Yeah, I think the inflammatory part. I think that has to do with being like a big stressor,
Yeah,
chemical stressor, especially with
right.
the MRT concept of type 3, type 4 sensitivities
Yeah.
and causing inflammation to that person. If that's going to cause stress, then that stress is going to result in the blood flow, nerve flow issues that are very common with migraines. So it's just a really perfect snowstorm, snowball. And it's tough to be able to come up with a food dietary protocol catered for a population of people that deal with a condition when you don't know what their individual inflammatory responses will be to those recommendations. That's why that test is so critical.
It's
It's
kind of
just
like
absolutely
you
essential to have.
doing. It's kind of like you doing adjustments without scanning anybody.
Yeah. Oh, dude. It literally would be like me doing adjustments without scanning X-rays and being like, okay, I'm going to put my hand on your neck and I'm going to put in a force. I'm going to hope you get better.
Exactly.
That's really what it is. It's like, no,
Yeah.
let's actually. I know for sure.
Yeah.
Let's know A, if I can help, and B, let's know what's causing this, and then we'll get you right and get you right the right way. Um, but I guess then generally speaking, I think you had mentioned that you had a list of foods that you wanted to dive into. I think this would be a good segue opportunity into that and how they are related with migraines. So you have that
Mm.
list dialed up. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I think, like you were talking about, and very aptly describing the fact that a migraine diet, let's say just a generic migraine diet, has never been established. And so a lot of people hear that, or you'll find that on health websites, and they'll just leave it at that and they'll say, there's no migraine diet. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of different foods and food chemicals, just like tyramine or caffeine or MSG, that have had a lot of research to show to be a common trigger. So that's where individualization, an elimination diet with a dietitian, the testing, if that can be utilized, is so helpful, because having just a list of foods is a little bit more challenging to determine. There are some beverages that I think are really interesting. So obviously, just hydration is key. But there's a couple of things that people can look out for things to include. One is feverfew tea, and it's safe for people as long as they're not pregnant or breastfeeding, or they're taking certain meds. So they might want to check, just like other things like caffeine and grapefruit and things like that can affect meds. So, but feverfew tea has been shown to maybe help with migraines. Coconut water that doesn't have added sulfites is another great one to include because it's very hydrating. It's got potassium. If you're using coconut water as a replacement for a sports drink, then you're going to need to add a little sodium because it just has potassium. It doesn't have any sodium. And Chris, do you know which electrolyte you lose more in sweat, salt or potassium?
I want to say salt, but you make me think it's a trick question. Is it a trick question?
It's not. You got it. Salt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
It goes
say,
salt.
I was like, why are you asking me that? It's too simple.
Just making sure. And for the audience, just to show you the talent of the stuff you can remember. Sodium.
Make me doubt myself.
Sodium and chloride are the top things you lose with sweat. Yep. And then potassium. And then way down is a little bit of magnesium and calcium. But coconut water is great potassium replacement. Peppermint tea is another great thing for migraines. And it also is really soothing for the gut. So a lot of times people use it for digestion. So those are some really good things. And then there's certain foods with nutrients that are very helpful. And we talked about some of those already, like omega-3 rich fish, due to the anti-inflammatory effects, fruits and vegetables, as many as you can get in for the antioxidants, which again is reducing inflammation. So really inflammation is the biggest kind of factor when you're thinking about which foods to or to not include.
Yep.
And then beyond that, individualization. So if I would say as a good summary, if you're working on your sleep, if you're drinking plenty of water and getting enough electrolytes, if you're moving enough, you're generally sticking to a whole nutrient dense diet, and you're still not achieving the symptom relief you're looking for, you definitely should be getting a free scan from you, and you should definitely be considering an elimination diet.
Right. Just doing the research, identifying what the value is, and what the value is for you, and what a measure of success is, and only you can determine that for yourself.
Yep.
So once I identify those, then that's okay. Well, then what's the team I need to arm myself with that's going to help me get to where I want to be, get to that version of success that I'm now measuring and quantifying, and then taking action, getting there. That's really it. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up and head off to lunch and doing fun things. So just take care, people.
Wrapping up migraine month. That was fun. I'm looking forward to July. We'll have to talk about what to do for that. Alzheimer's discussion was so great. We might even continue into that. We'll see.
Yep. There's you can go through with the lens of talking about the problems of things and the issues of things, and how to heal that stuff up, and we can also go in on like what makes certain areas optimally healthy too. From a preventative standpoint. So there's a lot of angles that we can go in on, and obviously we'll be continuing to do that through the month. Next week is 4th of July.
Yes.
So I think that means we're off.
Yeah. First week we've had a holiday on a Thursday.
First week we had a holiday on Thursday, and then that week after that I'll be in Chicago.
Oh,
so
very cool.
Might be needing a guest on the show. I'll probably be at a Brewers game or a Cardinals game or something.
Enjoy. Yeah, I was about to mention that. It would be fun to have a guest on again. That would be fun. That'd be good. Wait for that.
Some more of those on. So
great.
All right then, friends. Until next time, take care, and we will be seeing you in 2 weeks.
See ya. Stay hydrated.
Yes.